All right. So, uh, just to provide a little bit of background, since people might be coming into this training with various familiarities with the portal and what we're talking about when we're customizing the portal, I just want to kind of talk through that real quickly. Uh, what we're talking about when we are looking at the customer portal is not this area of HelpSpot that we're seeing right now on the screen. Instead, what we're going to be looking at today is the customer facing side of HelpSpot. And so this is kind of what that looks like by default. So you can see here that we have just kind of a blank template at this point. We have an area that we can submit requests, form there, and then an area that customers can come in and check on requests. And we have some links to documentation, things like that, that are all available inside of this portal. So that's kind of stuff that all just comes stock. And what we're really going to be diving into today is how we can take this portal and customize it quite a bit. So let's go ahead and start diving into that. And we're going to start by looking at some of the settings that we can adjust right inside of the admin area in HelpSpot in order to customize the way that our customer-facing portal looks and feels. All right, so I've just switched over to the admin area here, and we're going to go ahead and go over to the settings area, and then we'll select portal. Now in this screen, we have a bunch of settings here that we can start to configure in order to change the way that uh, the portal will act for our customers. So the first option that we have here is actually we can edit the way that the request form is going to request information from the customer. So by default on the request form, what we have here is we have just a details box. And so that's just going to ask for the customer to provide, whatever descriptive text about their problem they want to. Now we do have another format that we can also prompt them for, which is a detailed format with 3 questions. And so that provides a little bit of more structure for customers to frame their problems with. So if we go ahead and change that format here, and then refresh our web form over here, you can see that we've now switched out to asking the customer 3 different questions. So this is kind of a common troubleshooting description method. So we're going to first have the customer describe, this is what I did, and then this is what I expected to have happen. So what was I trying to do? And this is what actually happened. So if you're in a more formal kind of troubleshooting process, you might consider using this question format in order to get more exact information from your customers. Moving on down the list here, we have a number of other options as well. The next option down is we can choose to have the portal request form send out a auto reply email. Now by default, when a customer is going to enter a request through the request form, they'll then be taken to that request ID right away in the customer view, and they'll be able to add additional notes and that kind of thing. Now, if you also want to have an auto reply go out, you can choose to have that option selected here. Now, this next option is kind of an important one to talk about, and if you have some questions about how this one works, we can go into more detail on it for sure. So by default, when a new request is created for a customer in HelpSpot, that customer behind the scenes is given an account inside of HelpSpot, a customer account. And that customer account is tied to their email address. So what that's going to do then is when the customer goes to the check on a request area and logs in with their email address and password, it's going to show them all requests that they've opened up in the past that are tied to their email address. That's kind of the default way that most people are used to using the HelpSpot portal. So that's this setting right here, is that we're going to show request history based on email account. Now, there are some cases where you may wish to show request history across multiple email accounts. So maybe you work with companies and you want to show all of those companies' tickets to any customer that logs in from that company. What we can do to facilitate that is change this option to show request history based on the customer's ID. So the customer ID is a field that we have in HelpSpot. I'll just go ahead and open it up in the request so that we can see where that is. So the customer ID is recorded right here. In this case, this customer's ID is 3745. And what HelpSpot's going to do is, if we have this option selected in our portal settings, when the customer logs in, it's going to look at that customer's email address and then look at what customer IDs that email address is associated with in HelpSpot. When it goes ahead and does that, it will pull all requests for those customer IDs and display them in the request history for the customer. So that's a really nice way in order to kind of gather together all of one organization's requests for a customer to be able to view. Again, this is kind of an advanced option. It has applications for specific organizations that are using HelpSpot. The next option that we have down here is how we want customers to be able to log in to the portal. So we saw before inside of our portal here that when we go to the check request page, we're going to ask for an email address and a password. And so the email address and password that are there by default are going to be internal to HelpSpot. So the customer, the first time they are logging in, are going to go ahead and click on this create or reset password. In order to generate their password, it will be sent to their email, then they'll be able to log into the portal for the first time. Now, you may have an Active Directory or other authentication scheme that you're using in your organization that all your customers already have accounts in. If you want to leverage that for logging into the HelpSpot portal, that can be done by selecting the black box option here. And we give some instructions then on how you start to script that black box authentication. And we have some links to documentation that have examples for things like Active Directory. So that's something that we aren't going to be able to dive into the details of actually setting that up today, because it is really specific to each organization how you have to configure that to work with your specific authentication source. But that is an option if that's something that you're looking for, is having kind of a unified login between the HelpSpot portal and other systems that you may have. The next options down here are relatively self-explanatory. We can choose to allow file attachments or not, and choose what kind of file attachments we're going to allow. This is when requests are being created or updated. And then we can also choose if we want to allow CC email addresses when a request is created. So that's going to allow the customer to CC other individuals on a request. And we can also choose if we want to present a subject line field where the customer can specify what the subject line of the request is. Let's go ahead and I'll just turn both of these on just so we can see what that looks like. All right, so we can see that now when I go to my my request form here, I have a also notify email field, and I also have a subject line field here. So those are some fields that you can just turn on and off right away inside of the HelpSpot admin area. Now we'll go into more detail a little later about editing this form actually in the templates and some more advanced things that we can do. Finally, then down here we have some settings just about specifying some different display areas, like we can specify a phone number for support that will be displayed on the portal. We can specify what we want the homepage message to be. You can put HTML in there if you want to include links to other resources, that type of thing. And then finally, we have some spam settings down here, which I won't go through in detail. They all have very good explanations along with them. The one thing that I will mention is that if you do have a public-facing portal, so a portal where that's open up to the web that allows anyone to create a request, I would recommend having a CAPTCHA on that just to avoid any spam problems that you might run into with spam bots filling out the form. And I would recommend using the reCAPTCHA service. That's really the best at preventing spam. And so what you do with that is you just select that as your CAPTCHA type, and then you go ahead and create a reCAPTCHA account with Google and put in your site key and your secret key here. We have some documentation on how to do that as well. And that's going to provide the best spam prevention for the portal possible. All right, so those are kind of some of the settings that we have right away inside of the admin area. Now, two other areas that I want to cover here in the admin area before we start diving into the template code is I want to cover how we can integrate public categories and public custom fields into a request form. So looking at our request form here right now, we can see that we have a couple of categories here that are already public. So we have a general sales category and a general support category that customers can select when they are filling out the request form. Now, this can all be controlled by you about what categories you want to have available to be shown from the portal. So if I go up to my categories area here in the admin panel, I can see the public column here on all of my categories. And we can see that that general sales and general support category are both listed as public currently. Now, when you want to add another category to the portal request form, you don't have to edit any HTML or do anything like that. All of that logic is handled for you. All you have to do is go ahead and edit the category, change the visibility to public, and then go ahead and save that edit. Now, if we go ahead and go back to our request form and refresh this page, now when we pull down the category dropdown, we see that we have general sales, general support, and hardware available here. So that's how easy it is to add and remove categories from your request form. Now, categories are great for just collecting kind of a general categorization, obviously, of requests, but we can take it a level deeper and we can start to gather more information from customers with custom fields. So let's go ahead and set that up because there are a couple of caveats that I want to cover about how that gets set up. So we're going to go ahead and create a custom field. In this case, I'm just going to have a text field. And I'm going to go ahead and go to step 2. And let's say in this case, maybe I need to collect a room number when someone has a hardware problem. So I'm going to go ahead and select room number here. And then I'm going to choose that I want this particular custom field visible on my hardware category. Now this is important. If I were to select the human resources category, which is not a public category, even if I were to make this into a public custom field, it would never be shown because the category is never public. So it's a tiered relationship. A public custom field has to be living inside of at least one public category. So I'm going to go ahead and choose a category that is public. And then I'm going to go ahead and select that I want this field on the public request form. All right, that all looks good. I'm going to go ahead and create that field. Now at this point, there isn't any other editing that I need to do to the request form. I can just come over here and reload this. And now by default, it's not going to be shown because HelpSpot is handling the conditional logic and it's saying I'm going to only show that custom field if the correct category is selected. So in this case, when I go ahead and select hardware, then HelpSpot automatically inserts that room number custom field. And I can go ahead and enter in the room number and the details, and I could go ahead and fill out the rest of this request form. So as you can see, it's pretty easy to start collecting other types of structured data with your portal request forms just by adding custom fields and making them public. All right, so at this point, we're going to start diving into the request templates. So the way that I'm going to be editing the portal templates today is through the HelpSpot admin interface. And this is really the way that I recommend everyone edit the templates. Now you can go ahead and edit the portal templates on your server file system as well if you're self-hosted. But I'm gonna go ahead and edit everything through the web interface here for two reasons. One, if you're on HelpSpot Cloud, this is the only way that you can edit the templates. So I wanna make sure that this is applicable, to all of our customers. And then second of all, when you go ahead and edit through the admin interface, the admin interface takes care of a few things behind the scenes for you. First of all, when you make an edit on a portal template, it's going to automatically copy that file that you're editing into a custom templates folder. And what that means is that all of your changes to that portal template will be preserved whenever HelpSpot is upgraded. Now, this is something you can do manually on the server as well, but it's just easier to do it through this admin interface since it handles all that file shuffling for you. Now, in addition, the other thing that the portal editor here is going to do for us is it's going to also version our files. So whenever we go to a portal template and we make an edit, it's going to save that as a new version of that file and keep old versions for us. So that can be really handy if you're trying a change out and then you realize that you made a mistake, something's not working. It makes it very easy to roll that file back and get back to a working version. So I always recommend for people to go through the customize portal templates area in order to start editing their portal templates. All right, so we provide each of the templates here that make up the portal. Now, a number of these deal with specific pages that are displayed, and we give little hints over here in this text about what each file controls. So for example, home.tpl.php controls the portal homepage. The request.tpl.php, right down here, handles the submit a request form. So you can get a good idea just from this view right here about which file you probably need to edit. Now, in this case, what I want to start doing is we just have a generic template here. And what you may want to do is kind of customize this to your company's branding. So we're going to go ahead and do a little bit of branding work on this template in order to make it match company colors and that kind of thing. So to do that, I'm going to be editing the CSS. So the CSS controls the look and feel, the colors, all of that kind of thing of the template. Now, I will note one thing here. If we look at our CSS files that we have a blue option, a gray option, and a classic option. So when you start to brand a template, you're going to want to choose which portal theme you want to start with. So let's go up and look at the portal themes for just a second. So I'm gone up to customize themes. You can see here I have 3 different default themes that I can choose from. I have the gray theme, the blue theme, and the classic theme. And usually what I recommend is that you just kind of look at those each, and when you're starting to customize, decide which one is closest to what you want to have your portal end up as, and then start from that particular template. Now, the portal templates are completely customizable. So in theory, you could start out from any one of these templates and get to whatever end you want to. But it usually makes it easier if you can find one that's kind of partway there for you already. All right, so we're just going to stay with the gray theme here, and we'll go back down to our portal templates. And in this case, we're going to edit our css.gray.tpl. Actually, wait, let me see. I think I might want to do blue. Yeah, I think I'm going to start with blue. Okay. All right, so then I'm going to edit the css.blue.tpl.php. All right, so this is going to bring up the editor for me. Now, I can go ahead and edit right in here, which is what I'm going to do today, just because that's the easiest to share with you all. But you can feel free, to take all this text, copy it out, and put it into a more advanced editor that has syntax highlighting and that type of thing, and hints and all those kinds of things, if that's something that you want. If you aren't familiar with CSS, this will kind of be a little bit of trial by fire, because I'm going to just kind of dive into the CSS here and start making some changes. But this will be a good introduction, even if you aren't familiar with it, just to kind of show you how simple it is to start working with CSS in order to modify things. All right, so let's just take a look at our theme change here quick. Okay, so we have a blue bar across the top here, and then we have our request form, some links over here. So maybe that your particular company doesn't use blue as their their branding colors. So let's go ahead and start removing some stuff that we don't need that is making this all blue. So I can see here in the background that I have this blue bar that's displayed on the top. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that blue bar. And then I'm going to go ahead and go down, and I'm going to add a new style element to the banner area. And something that I do that's pretty easy to do is in Chrome, I can just right click on any element and go to inspect, and then I can see what element I'm working with. So in this case, I can see that I have an element here at the top that is banner, has an ID of banner. So I can go ahead and add in a new style for that particular element. All right. And we're just going to go ahead and set a new background element or background color for that element. All right, so just with that change, let's go ahead and save this, and we'll see if I did that right. Well, of course, according to the demo gods here, I think I missed the element. I think I must already have a banner element defined. Let's scroll down and look for that a little bit. Ah, yes, I do. Okay. So I don't need to redefine it up here. I can go ahead and find it down here, and I'm going to add in my background color here. All right, great. Let's save that again. All right, so now I've changed the background color of that bar so that it's going to match my my company colors. All right, so if I still have this blue bar down here, so I can look back in my CSS file, and I can right click again here and see what this is. All right, that's an ID of footer. So I can go ahead and look back in my CSS file, and we can even do a control F here and find the footer element. So I can go ahead and edit that color as well in order to update that. And then while I'm at it here, I'm going to make a few more changes. So I'm going to go ahead and style a few buttons as well. And I have a little bit of code here saved off screen in order to make this a little bit easier. All right, so we're going to change our submit button here. And our hover effect. All right, so let's go ahead and save that. And one thing I'll point out here right away is that if I go back in and edit now, you can see that each of my edits here is saved in this timeline. And I can go ahead and roll back to any of these template versions at any time. All right, let's see if we did this right. All right, there we go. So now I have a brownish orange search button here, and I have a brown header. So that's how simple it is to start, changing around some basic colors and that kind of thing. Now we can also go ahead and edit the actual HTML that's used to generate each of these pages. We can go beyond just CSS. So in this case, I'm going to add in a company logo. So I happen to know that in the header.tpl.php is where that header bar is generated. So I'm going to go ahead and edit that one. And right now we can see that each of these templates is a mix of PHP and HTML. And what I can see here is down in my banner div, right now we're echoing out the name of the particular portal. So what I can go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and edit that, and I'm going to add in a image link instead so that I have my company logo there. All right, let's go ahead and save that. So I've just edited the HTML of this template now. Now if I reload, and now I have my company logo here up at the top. So those are just a couple of quick styling changes that I made. Obviously, the sky is the limit. You can pull in either JavaScript that you want, you can pull in external CSS style sheets, you can pull in pretty much whatever you'd like into this template and start using it. You can rename divs if you want to. As you can see, as I'm editing these templates, I'll just go back into this header as an example. The full HTML of the portal is available to you. So if you want to change a body class, if you want to do any of that, you can go ahead and get that done. Now, there are some things that if you remove, it may break a particular portal functionality. So for instance, if we didn't include this JavaScript right here, a lot of things about the portal form would stop working because we need that JavaScript in order to make those things function. So that's something to be aware of, but adding functionality in is usually not a problem at all. All right, so let's make a little bit deeper edit here on this request form. So right now we're asking for a name. Now you might want to ask for a first name and a last name separately instead of asking just for a name. And kind of a neat thing is that hidden inside of a lot of these templates are commented out helper code that help you make some of these kinds of changes. So I'm going to go ahead and edit my request.tpl.php page. That's the page that controls this request form. Now you can see here that we have some notes here right at the top about some things that you can do as far as linking and pre-filling in information. So if you're interested in kind of getting some deeper level functionality out of your portal, I'd recommend, especially on this like request.tpl.php page, just taking a look through the source code because we have a lot of hints in there about how to do some really cool stuff. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and go down to where that name field is, and we'll see some hints on how to split that out. All right, so here we can see, here's the field that's asking for the full name, and we see a comment here right below that says, if you'd rather use an individual first name and last name, we can uncomment these fields below and then take out this one above. So we can go ahead and do that here. We'll go ahead and take this PHP comment and just move that up here. And then we'll go ahead and comment out this whole area up here that's currently asking for the full name. All right, and then we'll save that template. And if I did it right, we'll now have a first and last name field. Oops, I did not do it right. Let's see what I did wrong. I think that's my mistake there. I should have turned on debugging to make this a little bit easier on myself, but there we go. All right, so now at this point, I have my first name and my last name fields available here, and I've removed that full name field. So as you can see, we can even start editing these form fields inside of here, inside of this this template. And if we went ahead and looked at this request.tpl a little bit more, you'd see that there's hints on how to pass in hidden information, how to gather the customer ID if that's something you need to do, how to require other fields. There's a lot of different options inside of here for doing that type of thing. All right, so one last thing we'll do here inside of the templates is we're going to go ahead and add a custom link over onto this right-hand menu. Now, a number of these links over on the side are automatically generated. And so this is something I haven't covered yet, but knowledge books can be made public, just like custom fields or categories can be made public. And when a knowledge book is made public, it's going to be displayed here in this side panel. And it's also going to be searchable through the portal search function. So these links are generated for us automatically, but we can go ahead and add in another link here because the portal templates are just HTML. It's pretty trivial to add another link. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this navigation.tpl. And we can see here that there's some PHP code that is showing all of those knowledge books that are public for us. But we can go ahead and just add in another element here. And we can just copy one of these and replace the text inside of it. And include a custom link to another resource. All right, so in this case, maybe I just want to link out to the HelpSpot site. And we can get rid of a little bit of this. That should be fine. So we'll just make this a simple link. And then we're just going to add in a, let's see here, HelpSpot site. That'll work good. All right, so we can go ahead and save that template. Now if we go ahead and refresh this, now I have a link out to the HelpSpot site here right in my portal. So as you can see, we can edit HTML, we can use those hints that we find throughout the templates, but we can go ahead and just make whatever HTML changes we like to these templates. All right, so one kind of final area of the templates that I just want to cover briefly just to explain to you how it works is that we can actually edit the routing of the portal itself. So if you aren't familiar with routes, it's a programming concept, and if you don't care about this little note, that's perfectly fine. So we can go ahead and edit the index file And here we can control all of the routes. And so what the routes basically say is that for each of these different pages that we request, this is the template I want you to load. And we can include extra logic. So for instance, on the request check case, we're including some logic that checks if the user is logged in, and if so, it sends them to their request history. If they aren't logged in, it's going to send them to the request check.tpl template, which asks them to log in. So you can do things like this in order to redirect users based on their logged in status or other criteria. So one thing that some people might want to do is they might want to require a login, so require the customer to log in before they're able to create a new request through the form. And so you can do that actually by modifying the logic for this case request. So what we could do is we could take something like this and replace it with something like this that's going to check if the user is logged in. If it is, we're going to display that template to them, the request template. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and load the request check template, which is that template that requires or asks for their login credentials. So you can go really deep with the PHP logic that this portal is running off of in order to do some really advanced stuff like that. And let's go ahead and save this just so we can see that work. Let's see if I did it right. All right, yeah. So now whenever I click on submit request, since I'm not logged in currently, I'm getting redirected to this login page. And then once I logged in, I would be able to view that submit a request page. I'm going to go ahead and roll back that change for now. There we go. All right, so the kind of final thing that I want to cover here today before we open things up for questions is I want to take a look at secondary portals. So let's start with just a little bit of background on why you might want to use a secondary portal. So far today, we've been looking at the primary portal, which comes by default with HelpSpot. And so the primary portal is going to be located at whatever your HelpSpot URL is. So in this case, it's training.helpspot.com. Now, what HelpSpot allows you to do is it allows you to set up secondary portals that will have all the same features as a primary portal, but we can make additional customizations. So secondary portals are set up in this area right here under Customize. And each secondary portal is going to have its own URL. And it's also going to have its own set of portal templates. Now, the templates from the primary portal will be used by default, but you can go ahead and actually go into the portal templates area, select that secondary portal that you've created, and modify all those templates. So reasons you might want to use a secondary portal are you might have more than one brand that you're supporting through HelpSpot. So you might have brand A, B, and C, and you want to display separate logos and that type of thing for each of those brands when the customer visits that particular support portal. So that's all possible through secondary portals. Or you might have multiple departments that you work with inside of HelpSpot. So you have an HR department, an IT department, and a maintenance department that are all using HelpSpot. And you might want the request form to be different and have different categories available, different custom fields available for each of those departments. Now you can do that all with secondary portals again. So I've gone ahead and set up a secondary portal here already. Now the setup process is going to be a little bit different if you are a cloud customer or if you're a self-hosted customer. When you're adding a secondary portal, you have to fill out this form first. And you need to know a little bit about your HelpSpot instance in order to set up this portal. So we're going to be asked for a name, obviously, first of all, but then we're going to be asked for the domain that, or the URL that this portal is going to live at. So the easiest option is to have it live in a subdirectory of your main portal. So often what we do is we'll have, in my case, training.helpspot.com/portal2, portal3. You can name it whatever you like. And then we also need to map the physical server directory where that portal lives that relates to that URL. Now you can get more complicated with DNS setup, and you can set up second, subdomains or even completely other domains. And we have documentation on how you do each of those setups. I can't walk through each of those today just because the variations on the setups are just about infinite. So if you need help with getting started with secondary portals, with getting the file path right and that kind of thing, we can definitely help you out individually with that. Now you'll notice that when I'm setting up a secondary portal here, I also have a number of different options. So I can select what public categories I want to have available on this secondary portal and what custom fields I want to have available. I can also select what public knowledge books I want to have available. So say in our 3 different department scenario, maybe I have a knowledge book for the maintenance department and I have a knowledge book for the HR department, but I don't want to show the HR department's knowledge book on the maintenance secondary portal. I can go ahead and select only the knowledge books that I want to have available on that particular secondary portal. We can also choose what mailbox the emails for this portal are going to get sent from. So this is great in a branding example. If you want, maybe you have brand A, you want all of the emails when a customer uses that portal to come from support@branda.com. And then you have brand B and you want all of those emails to come from support.brandb. You can choose to set that up so that the mailboxes are going to default correctly and send from a branded email address. And we can edit some of the other standard things like the portal phone and the portal homepage message and that kind of thing. So in this case, I'm working on a HelpSpot cloud instance. And so I've gone ahead and set up a secondary portal already. And it's living at just portal 2 here. So I'm going to go ahead and edit a few of these settings, and we can kind of see how we can customize a portal to just show the things that we want. So in this case, I'm going to choose to show the documentation knowledge book, but I only want to show the hardware category and the room number. And we'll say that the default mailbox for this is brand B, just for fun. And then we'll go ahead and save this template. All right, so now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at this particular template or this particular portal. All right, so I'm going to that URL. And we can see that here's my secondary portal that's living with just my default theme that I've selected. And then in here, if we look at the categories that I have, you can see that I only have the hardware category and my room number custom field. I don't have those other categories that I don't have selected for this particular portal. Now, if I wanted to go ahead and start branding this one differently, I could go ahead and go back over to my portal templates and select my secondary portal for the portal that I want to edit. And I can go ahead and start to edit these templates as well. So that's just kind of a quick overview of the way that secondary portals work. As I mentioned, if you're working in a self-hosted environment, there's going to be some instructions that are provided on how to set up the files that are needed in order to make the secondary portal work. And we kind of document each step that you need to take right here. If you're working with HelpSpot Cloud, just contact us in support, and we'll walk you through the steps of setting it up there. We have an automatic provisioning process that takes care of setting up secondary portals. But we want to be sure that you get the URLs right and that kind of thing. All right, so I wanted to be sure to leave some time here at the end to address questions. So I'm going to go ahead and start looking in the questions panel. If you have other questions that you've thought of, or just feel free to start typing those in, and I'll start working through the questions that we have queued up here already. All right, so the first question I think I probably answered already. Is there a way to sync the email password for the customer with AD. And so just to reiterate where that would be done is that's going to be back up in the settings for the portal. And what we would do is we would select the black box option, and then we would put in our custom code folder, we would have a black box portal.php file that's going to it's going to control that external authentication. And out on our support site, we have a example for doing that with Active Directory, actually. So if that's something that you're looking to do, we have an example pre-built for that. All right, next question up here. All right, okay, so this is going back into the what we were talking about with the this show request history based on setting, where we're associating with customer IDs. And so the question is just clarification on where that relationship is made between the customer ID and the email address. So yeah, so the question is it based on the request history? Yes, it is based on the request history. So there isn't a separate like settings panel that you go to say this email address belongs to this customer ID, that kind of thing. Instead, what we're doing is we're looking at the request history and we're saying, okay, this email address opened this request and we gave it this customer ID. And so then we're tying those two together automatically for you. So if the customer has ever opened a request for that particular customer ID, then they have access to that customer ID's requests. So that's how it works. There isn't any kind of separate setup that has to happen or anything like that. So hopefully that makes that clear. If I need to clarify it further, just chat in another question. Next question is, can we use Bootstrap with the themes? Absolutely. So we've had several customers that use Bootstrap in order to theme their portal templates. Nothing's stopping you from using Bootstrap or really any other CSS framework that you're looking at, or JavaScript framework for that matter. You can go ahead and use it. So you can just import it in your header.tpl.php probably, and then have at it with styling elements and that kind of thing. So nothing stopping you from doing that for sure. Okay, so the next question is, will the secondary portal inherit from the primary only when you first create it, or as long as you haven't touched the PHP template, will it continue to update from your primary? So the secondary portal is just going to inherit yeah, sorry if I wasn't clear on that. The secondary portal, as we saw, is just going to inherit the base theme that you set. And then any customizations that you make from there are per portal. So if you're wanting to have the exact same look across all of your portals, you want to update each of those with any customizations that you make. So we specifically allow you to have separate custom templates for each secondary portal. All right, so the next question is, how do we determine the URL of the portal? Okay, so that's a real easy one. So what we can do to determine that, probably the easiest way is if you're logged into the HelpSpot admin area and you click on portal here, this is going to show you your primary portal and any secondary portals that you have. And when you click on any of these links, it's just going to open up a new tab with whatever your HelpSpot portal is set up as. Now, for the primary portal, if you are interested in changing that URL, that is actually a config file change. So let me see if I can pull that up here quick. So this would be on a self-hosted installation. This would be edited in a config file. On HelpSpot Cloud, this would be a change that we would make for you. But let me see if I can pull up the config file in question here. Okay, I just need to switch my screen share here. All right, so you should hopefully be able to see my editor here at this point. And so this is the config.php file that lives inside of each HelpSpot install. And the URL is set here in the chost parameter. So this happens to be a local testing instance that I have. So it's just a loopback address that I have right here. But you can set this base URL here. And then obviously beyond that, so that's the HelpSpot specific setting. Then based on what web server you're running, you may need to change some bindings or some settings in an HTTPD conf, that kind of thing, in order to have your web server listening at that particular URL and serving the correct HelpSpot folder. All right, so next question here. Let me just switch this back because we don't really need to keep looking at my my config file there. All right, there we go. So if you have existing customers in HelpSpot, how would you find their customer ID? Okay, so customer ID is a setting that you set. So on any request, this customer ID is just a free text field. So that's going to map to usually some kind of customer ID that you have internally. In some cases, it might be from a CRM that you have where you keep your customer information, or it might be an Active Directory ID. It depends on kind of who your customers are. But this is just a free text field, so I can enter anything in here that I want. Now, if you're looking to really standardize those customer IDs, what we usually recommend, if possible, is to configure your HelpSpot installation with a live lookup. Now, what live lookup allows you to do is it allows you to look up in a third-party database, so something like your Active Directory or your CRM, allows you to look up that customer information and then insert it. And so we will pass in whatever information we already have. So like if I were to take out some of this information, so we would be passing in the first, last name, and email address, and then the live lookup scripts logic would go ahead and search your external database for that, pull up a record, and we would be able to verify that we got the right person here, and then we could say insert customer information, and we'd be able to insert that customer ID from that third-party data source. But by default, we don't assign any kind of customer ID or anything like that. That's just a free text field for you to use. And if you wanted to integrate it, live lookup is the way to do that. All right, if looks like we have a couple of minutes left here. If anyone else has questions, feel free to shoot them into that question and answer area. Otherwise, I'd like to thank you for coming to this advanced training session. Hope you've got a taste for what you can do with portals here. Maybe gave you some fresh ideas for ways that you can utilize HelpSpot more inside of your organization. I'm just gonna point out a couple of resources here quick, and then I'll go back to the questions and answer any final questions that we have. So first of all, if we go over to support.helpspot.com, if you're interested in setting up secondary portals and kind of some of the configuration stuff around that, if you go to the administrator manual, and then scroll down inside of here, you can see we have a whole section on setting up secondary portals, some of the caveats with different web servers, that kind of thing. So feel free to make use of that information. And as I mentioned, if you need some advice on your specific server setup, that kind of thing, feel free to contact us in support, and we're happy to help out and get you set up properly with that. Also, we do have other information. So we have like templating basic information here, some information on language files as well, which is something we didn't even get into, but it is something that affects templates as well. So feel free to take a look at this documentation for sure. One other area that I'll mention is just the HelpSpot blog. So we publish articles fairly frequently out here about how to do different things inside of HelpSpot. And every so often we'll have something about portal templating specifically. So for instance, that adding of a subject line in CC, we had an article out there about that. If I scroll down, I'll probably find some more as well. So just feel free to make use of that resource as well to get some other tutorials and kind of in-depth deep dives on features. All right, so it looks like we have one more question here. We are officially at the end of our time, so if you need to get going, that's great. Thank you everyone for attending, and I hope you found this session helpful. Last resource I'll mention is if you want to grab a recording of this session to review again, or if you want to send it to a colleague, that kind of thing, you can get at that. I'll be posting it. Let's see here. Let me find the right URL so I can get people the right spot here. So if we go to the video training area and then advanced topics, or you can just go to helpspot.com/advanced-training. Here is the sign up for future sessions that we're having, and I'll be posting a link right up here out to the recordings archive. So I'll get that up after this session here today. All right, so to address the final question that we have here, let's see here. Okay, so the question is back to the customer ID email association. If the email is not associated with any customer ID, is it going to default to just using the email in order to find related requests? And yes, that is correct. So it's dual purpose. So if there aren't any customer IDs associated with particular requests, yeah, it'll default to an email search, and then it's just adding in any customer ID associations that it finds. So the regular email address association will continue to work as normal with that setting. All right. Well, thank you everyone for attending. If you think of more follow-up questions or anything like that, feel free to just contact us in support, and we're always happy to help you out. Otherwise, thank you very much, and have a great rest of your day.